Welcome, everybody. Good evening. My name is Manny Crispin, and I'm the first vice chair of the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County. Thank you all for joining us today. A special thanks to the Democratic Party of New Mexico, the Democratic parties of Bernalillo, Valencia, Cibola counties, New Mexico Secretary of State Maggie Toulouse Oliver, and Bernalillo County Clerk Linda Stover, and everyone for making this event possible. I'd also like to thank all of the Democrat candidates who have stepped up to run for Congress. We appreciate you and we are deeply grateful for your service to our great state. And lastly, but certainly not least, and on behalf of the Democrats across New Mexico, I want to thank our fierce friend, Congresswoman Deb Haaland, for her service to the 1st Congressional District and to congratulate her on her nomination by President-elect Joe Biden to serve as the 54th United States Secretary of Interior. Her appointment to this highly honorable position marks an important milestone as she will become the first Native American Cabinet Secretary in United States history. As we move forward into the new year, one of our first tasks as Democrats will be nominating and electing a strong and dedicated New Mexican to represent the 1st Congressional District in Washington, D.C. In less than 1 week, Joe Biden will be our president and Kamala Harris will be our vice president. This year will be one of the most consequential years in our lifetime, and our Democratic leaders need our support. New Mexico Democrats, through the leadership of DPNM Chairwoman Mar Galliston, have shown to the rest of the country that we are not okay with the status quo and that we want change. We have shown that we embrace diversity and we reject bigotry. We have shown that we are willing to set aside our differences to unify our state and to move forward on a path towards honesty and integrity. The CD1 nomination and special election will be very different from any democratic process we've ever experienced. New Mexico has not had a special election for a congressional seat since 1998, much less conducting a special election in the middle of a pandemic and a national public health crisis. The Secretary of State, our county clerks, and DPNM are working tirelessly to make sure that these elections go off without a hitch. Thank you all again for joining us this evening. Your dedication to our state means everything. Again, my name is Manny Crispin and I'm honored to serve you as the first vice chair of the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Ashley Saraceno, chairwoman of the Democratic Party of Cibola County. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you, Manny. Guatsi Hopa, greetings in my native Keres language. My name is Ashley Saraceno. I am from the Pueblos of Laguna and Acoma, and I am the chairwoman of the Democratic Party for Cibola County. I am honored to facilitate this important conversation with an incredible panel of New Mexico's Democratic women. Before we get started, I want to quickly run through what we're going to talk about tonight. So first, during this hour-and-a-half meeting long, we are going to go through the housekeeping. We'll have an introduction of our esteemed panelists. There'll be a discussion of the election process, and then we'll go ahead and have our closing remarks. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to housekeeping. So for tonight, all attendees, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in your chat box. It should be located off to the right of your screen. Alan Copeland will be monitoring our chat, so she'll be letting me know about questions that you all have, and we'll do our best to get to all of your questions this evening. Ivan Pfeiffer is our Zoom tech, and he'll be recording tonight's session. And the recording will be available on the DPBC website, bernalillocountydems.org, and we'll make sure that we send you all the information so that you know where to get this recording at a later date. So now time to our esteemed guests. First, we have the Honorable Maggie Toulouse Oliver. So Maggie, if you can go ahead and tell us more about yourself and how you are included in this wonderful process.
Happy New Year, everybody. Maggie Toulouse Oliver, Secretary of State. And it's nice to be with you all, even in this, continuing virtual environment. I am involved in this election because as Secretary of State, it is my job to oversee all federal, state, and local elections in the state of New Mexico, including and especially any type of congressional elections, the special election in this case. So I will be working closely with the county clerks that of the 5 counties involved in the election to help them and provide tools and resources and oversight and guidance as they do the hard work of actually digging in and conducting the election coming up later this year. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Next, we have the Honorable Linda Stover. So Linda, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on over to you so you can let us know about what you do and how you're involved in the process.
I'm the Bernalillo County Clerk. We're the largest county in CD1, so we'll be doing the bulk of the election through our county. We'll be overseeing that. We'll be working directly with Maggie in the Secretary of State's office to make sure that it's a smooth and transparent election. I think it'll go great. We're already on board with putting things together for it. And we are excited for a new CD1 person and very proud of our Deb Holland. Gosh, Secretary of the Interior, bravo for us, bravo for her.
Thank you so much, Linda. So next we have the Honorable Marg Elliston. Marg, I'll go ahead and hand the mic over to you. Please let us know what you do and how you're involved in this process.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks, Ashley. It's an honor to be on this panel with so many wonderful leaders. Thank you so much to our Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse Oliver, who conducted a fantastic election in November, produced fantastic results. It was free and fair. It was free of fraud, and no one has proved anything wrong about that election. So set the record straight, stop the big lie, and thank our Secretary of State for a great election in November. Aided and abetted by our county clerk in Bernalillo County, Linda Stover. Both of you women are just dynamite and have really worked hard to keep everything transparent and understandable and predictable somewhat. But I was just laughing about predictable because we're kind of in a interesting situation with this because we don't know when this election is going to occur, but I have every confidence that our Secretary of State is going to lead us into the process and that we're going to have a great election and with the great outcome of electing another outstanding Democrat when the process is over. So I'm chair of the Democratic Party and I want to make sure that Democrats are elected.
Thank you so much for your words, Marg. The next wonderful female we have that will be speaking with us is Chelsea Evans. So Chelsea, I'll go ahead and turn the mic over to you. You can tell us about your role and let us know more about how you'll be involved in this process.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Hi, everyone. I'm Chelsea Evans. I'm the Executive Director of the Democratic Party of New Mexico. Really excited to be here with you all this evening and really honored to be on such an amazing panel with so many amazing individuals. My main role is to help support our amazing staff at the state party as we venture into what we'll talk about a little bit tonight, which is that kind of first step in that process of electing a nominee that we will certify with Secretary of State to be placed on the general election ballot once a vacancy happens. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for your words, Chelsea. The next individual we have on deck is the Honorable Flora Lucero. Hi, Flora. Please let us know what your role is and how you'll take part in this special election.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And thank you everyone for being here, all of the panelists. I am so honored to be here with you, and to all the attendees for taking time out of your evening to hear firsthand what this election is going to be like, and the things we need to know in order to disseminate accurate information. So I thank all of our panelists for taking the time to help us understand this. My name is Flora Lucero. I'm the chair of the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County, and we have roughly 94% of the CD1 SCC candidates, and the CD1 SCC candidates will be the people who elect our Democratic nominee for CD1. And so we have a big process that's taking place. We currently have of course, our SCC members that were elected in 2019, but we're in the process of planning and executing our ward meetings, which start in February, and we'll be then having our CCC County Central Committee meeting where we'll elect our next SCC in March. So it's a big process, and hope you all participate.
Thank you so much for your important words, Flora. The last that we have on our panel is the Honorable Joan Day Baker. Joan, please let us know what your role is and how you'll be participating in this special election.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you everybody for having me this evening. My name is Joan Day Baker. I'm the chair of the Democratic Party of Valencia County. I want to thank Flora Lucero and the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County for putting forth so much effort in getting this event tonight and making sure that our electorate is educated, and for having me as well. So Valencia County has a small portion of CD1. It goes down a little into Tomei and takes up part of Middle Lake. And so we will have SCC members that will need to be prepared for this process and this vote. And so I will be working with them closely, as well as making sure that our county election goes well and fair. Preparing our poll challengers and watchers when the final election happens.
Thank you so much, Joan. So now it's discussion time. Are you all ready to delve deeper into the process and learn more about how this special election is going to go? I am. We're going to go ahead and start out with some questions that we all generated. So these questions, the first question will be directed at Maggie and Linda. So our first question that we have is, will CD1 general election be held in person, absentee, or a combination?
If it's okay with you, Linda, I'm just going to say something real quick and then let you talk about the main piece, which is your piece of actually running it. I know there's been a little bit of confusion on this issue, so that's principally what I wanted to address. So congressional special election is a special election in the sense that it is occurring not at the same time as a general election, right? So we have, in New Mexico, we have primary elections, general elections, the regular local election, which occurs in November of odd numbered years, and anything that occurs outside of that is a special election. However, the procedures for this election fall under the same procedures as the general election. So we do have a Special Election Act in the Election Code. It addresses, this is primarily for nonpartisan entities, tax questions, bonds, sort of, emergencies that may come up that the taxpayers need to address. And the purpose of creating that Special Election Act was to make sure that those weren't being held intentionally at a different time than the regular local election in odd Novembers, so that there would be plenty of participation and voice. Those will be all mail elections. So again, for a school bond or a mill levy, this special election falls under the general, the election code as the general election procedures. And so it's a bit complicated. We call it a special election because it's not happening during the general election time, but we conduct it just like we would conduct a general election. And then Linda, I'll hand it over to you to talk about how that's gonna work in practice.
Yes, it's an out of sequence election. It falls under the same rules as the general election. It's not a special election. It's not a question election on bonds and issues. So I'm glad, Maggie, there were questions here that somebody was talking in the chat room. So that will be done. We'll be handling this election just like any other general election. Once a nominee is done from all major parties, then we will have a general election. Maggie will have 10 days upon Deb's resignation and confirmation to do a proclamation issuing an election. We have, correct me, Maggie, if I'm wrong, 77 to about 90 days in which we can hold this election. So the time will be picked, and we'll have 3 major parties. If the Libertarians produce somebody, we'll have 3 major candidates on this election. All of Bernalillo County's voting will be just like any other general election. We'll have 70 polling locations. We'll have same-day registration. We'll have absentee balloting if you want it. It'll be just like going to the polls or voting absentee in a regular general election. There will be no change. So it should be really easy for you. You've done it just a few weeks ago. You'll be able to do it again real quick.
Definitely some important information that you ladies gave us. One thing I didn't hear about was early voting. What about early voting? Can you ladies tell us more about whether or not there'll be early voting?
I think that'll depend on Maggie and when the election gets held, right, Maggie? We only have so many days.
That's right. So just depending on the time frame between when the election is called for, when the election is set, obviously the parties have to take the period of time that they need to nominate. I believe the date is 52 days before election day that candidates will be filed. And so we'll have a quick turnaround time, but theoretically, we should be able to provide for at least some early voting. It may not look exactly like early voting always looks like in a general election just because of the contracted time frame, but we should be able to make that work within the time frame provided in law.
Yes, anytime we get that we can work with Maggie in the dates, we'll be glad to do that.
Excellent. So the next question that I have is for Marg and Chelsea. The question is, how will the election for the Democratic nominee take place?
The members of the State Central Committee residing in Congressional District 1 will make the decision on who the nominee of the Democratic Party is for this position. We're going to have a very unusual situation because all our meetings will be virtual. So we've been working closely with the county chairs in the counties that are in CD1 to make sure that we all understand where we are and how the process will work. And I'm going to let Chelsea talk about the particulars, but this is such an exciting occurrence, and there's so many, as I said, moving parts to it that because we're in the middle of restructuring our State Central Committee, when the election happens, will govern who the voters will be. And it's a small group of about 150 people who will nominate our candidate for CD1. It's a lot like what goes on for our pre-primary nominating convention as far as the participation and winnowing down. So those of you who have participated in that will kind of get the spirit of it. But I'm going to let Chelsea talk about the details of the selection.
Yeah, thanks, Marg. So as Marg mentioned, the nominee will be chosen by our SCC members who reside within Congressional District 1. That makeup is individuals who were elected as an SCC member by virtue of their CCC meetings, as well as automatics, which include our statewide electeds who reside within CD1, as well as any appointments made by caucuses. Our caucuses receive 2 votes on SCC, and they give us those individuals who they would like to represent the caucus on the SCC. So again, any appointments made by caucuses of individuals who reside within CD1 will also be able to participate. So just a few distinctions there. As Mark mentioned, depending on the timing of the vacancy will determine who votes. As Mark mentioned, we are in the process, our 2-year process of changing up our SCC members, and that begins at the county level. And so just depending on the timing, this is something that we do not have any information about right now. And until that vacancy actually happens, we do not have a good sense of whether or not it will be the current SCC or if that vacancy would have happened triggering the new SCC, just depending on that date. We, as Mark mentioned, because of COVID-19 this past year, we have had to drastically change the way in which our SCC votes, but in a lot of ways, it's a really great thing because we have also really perfected a provision in our rules that we call absentee voting, which allows for our SCC business to proceed without a hitch and allows all of our SCC members to have a voice in this process. So we're really excited to be able to roll that out for this election as well.
Fantastic.
So
Oh, go ahead.
Just to be specific about that, what we anticipate that we'll have, and this is in response to some of the issues raised in the chat, we anticipate that we'll have webinars with all the candidates participating, so all the SCC members and the general public can get a look at our candidates. Then when we call the vote, it will be online on very secure forms that are only available to the actual voters. And after the voting occurs, the results will be published for everyone, and you'll know what's happening. So those are the procedures that the general outline of the procedures that we'll follow. This is not behind closed doors. This is not in a smoke-filled room. This is on our platform of Zoom, coping with COVID. So I get really mad when people say it's in smoke-filled rooms because none of us smoke anymore. But I also get mad when people say it's a closed-door process because it's open and we invite participation.
Thank you so much for touching upon the security, Mark. We'll talk about that a little later in our conversation. But I have a follow-up question, an exciting follow-up question regarding the voting. What is the requirement or requirements for people to run for the Democratic nomination in CD1? This question is directed again at Marg and Chelsea.
You have to be a registered Democrat in the and you have to file with the Federal Election Commission and other entities. And we're also going to encourage candidates to submit a declaration of candidacy, which we'll have a process for that once the vacancy is announced.
One slight caveat to what Mark just said. Technically, you don't have to be a resident of the district to run for Congress, and that's true in any state. I think we all appreciate the fact, though, that we like our representatives to live among those that they represent. So I just wanted to put that out there. But Mark is correct.
Thank you so much, ladies. So I'm going to go ahead and stay with Maggie, and then if Marg and Chelsea, you want to chime in on this question, we'll go ahead and turn the mics over to you. But the next question that we have queued up is, when and how do candidates apply to be candidates? Some have already declared informally. Do we have a list of them? And then do they support our platform? So if you can go ahead and touch upon that, that would be great.
Sure. So it's important to emphasize that this is a two-step process. For Democratic Party candidates and other major party candidates. The first thing is to, of course, become nominated by the party. At that point, the party, the Democratic, Republican, and Libertarian parties will officially file with my office their nominations for the ballot. And again, that needs to happen by 52 days before the election. However, the process to become a candidate for the nomination is being managed by the Democratic Party. So that piece, I think Marg and Chelsea should speak to how they're going to go about. The one thing that I just want to emphasize that Marg said is you do have to, any of these candidates will have to file and register with FEC, even as they're just kind of gearing up to seek the nomination.
And that stands for the Federal Election Commission. Chelsea, you want to go into the other piece of that?
Yeah, so our main qualification, we do ask, so once the vacancy does happen, we will put out a declaration of candidacy form. It makes our internal process of developing our ballot a lot easier, and the names can be on there. However, we still allow for a write-in process. So while we ask folks to do the declaration of candidacy form from the party side, it is not required. I will say a couple of things on that. The declaration of candidacy form, one, as I mentioned, helps us develop our ballot, but a couple of other things that it also helps us. We are starting regular communications with our campaigns and candidates that we know of that are out there that have declared, whether through FEC or through just releasing a letter of their intention. And so we also like to stay in regular communication with them, make sure that they understand the process that we're following. They can ask questions of us. So once that declaration of candidacy form becomes available, we'll definitely be encouraging folks to use that. But as I mentioned, there is a process for individuals to use the write-in if they choose to do so. Other than that, yes, they do need to be a registered Democrat, and those are the two main qualifications, and that is the main qualification that we have as the party, is that they are a registered Democrat. The FEC, we just strongly suggest that if you are campaigning, that you should also file with the FEC. So those are, from the party end, the big thing is the registered Democrat piece.
Great, thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next question, and this is again for Marg and Chelsea. How many CD1 SCC members are there currently to be elected to this cycle, and what is the breakdown by county?
So our current SCC membership as it stands right now, and again, just to caveat, I mentioned this earlier, this includes automatics and appointments, as well as elected CCC or SCC members, excuse me. So we have 167 members of the SCC who currently reside in Congressional District 1. The breakdown on that is 156 reside within Bernalillo County, 7 reside within Sandoval County, 1 each in both Santa Fe and Torrance counties, and 2 in Valencia County.
Definitely some detailed information, Chelsea. A follow-up question to that is, will the 5 counties in CD1 hold a joint meeting or separate meetings, and on the same day, different days? Can you let us know more information about that?
Yeah, so I think this is a great question, because I think it's a little confusing in a lot of ways. But just to be clear, the actual nomination of the election to nominate our Democratic nominee to this that we will then certify with the Secretary of State for this election is done at the state party level. So while SCC members reside within counties, the counties themselves will not have a role in executing this election at that level, if that makes sense. So this is a state party election that will be held at the state party level. I think where this gets confusing is our county parties, we work hand in hand with them, and the actual election of SCC members happens at the county level. So in the event that a vacancy happens during this time period or after this time period where a new SCC is elected, that's kind of where the county parties play a major role, a huge role, is at that election piece. And those election of SCC members are done at what we call the county central committee meetings, and those will start to be held. The requirement is that those meetings are held this year between March 10th and April 3rd. And so I don't want to, that gets really into the weeds here, but I do want to make it really clear the actual election for the Democratic nominee to go into this election will be done at the state party level by SCC members who originally were elected at the county level. That's kind of the best way that I can describe that.
Great. So I want to stay on this topic of SCC, and I have a couple of follow-up questions for both Marg and Chelsea. So the first one, or first cluster of questions, is can the SCC election be audited, verified, or checked by other Dems? And then I guess coupled with that will be, how will the security of the SCC vote take place?
Yeah, so you don't have to be a registered Democrat to request access to ballots after they have been certified. You can actually, anyone can request to review those ballots. We are required by our rules to keep all the certification of these elections after we can, dispose of them after 90 days, but we are required to keep them for 90 days to be reviewed by any individual, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or not even a registered voter. So that is open, and just emphasizing what Margaret talked about earlier, we are really proud of that. This SCC election is a non-secret ballot because our SCC members are elected officials of the Democratic Party of New Mexico. They are elected at the precinct level. These individuals come from their precinct as registered Democrats and elect individuals to serve in that capacity. And at the CCC level, they then vote on individuals to serve at the state central committee level. And so these are non-secret ballots. And after this election is conducted at the state party level, individuals will be able to come and review those ballots and see who voted for who. And that is completely an open and transparent process, and we're very proud of that process. And then I think your second question was the security piece.
Correct.
So we work with a tech team who on a regular basis check our security. We take a lot of pride in this. We work closely with the DNC to make sure that we are following all safety protocols and all security protocols when it comes to not just this type of an election, but all elections, as well as any other communication that we do at the Democratic Party level at the state. So a couple of things that really do help with this particular election is that it is a non-secret ballot. And so we can, see who is submitting the ballot, and we can see how they voted. The second piece is that anyone who submits their ballot immediately gets a receipt of their ballot that they can review and check back in with the party. And so any sort of fraudulent behavior where somebody's trying to submit a ballot on behalf of someone, it's a very easy process for us to follow up and verify that in fact that individual did vote.
And we've been conducting these online elections for the whole period of COVID. So our team is pretty experienced in this. They're also experienced in how to help people who don't have computer access to get their vote recorded as well. So we think we're covering the bases, and would love to hear any good ideas you have.
Great, thank you, Marg and Chelsea. I definitely see how these votes are going to be secure. And I'm interested to learn from Maggie and Linda, what are the plans for security in the county general elections? Do we anticipate any problems?
This is an evolving challenge. Of course, even in the general election this November, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic sort of precautions that were put in place in polling places across the state, of course, now we have these concerns around civil unrest, and particularly, violent civil unrest directed at our elections, right? So at the state and federal level, and then I would love for Linda to address kind of the work she's done and will continue to do it at the county level. We're working very closely. I sit on the Government Coordinating Council for Election Infrastructure with DHS. I'm in regular contact with DHS and our other federal partners, including the FBI. We have created a partnership in the state with the Air National Guard Cybersecurity Unit. But in addition to the technical piece of that, we also have sort of the physical threat piece of that. And so we also work with a component of DHS to make sure that all of our facilities, whether they be polling places, voting machine warehouses, et cetera, have security plans in place as well. As this continues to evolve, if we continue to see physical threats that may have the potential to impact the election, we will continue to work with our federal, state, and local partners to deploy whatever resources we need to ensure that voters are safe at the polls. But the flip side of that is we also need to make sure that we don't have armed, uniformed officers in or near our polling places so as to avoid threats of intimidation. So it's a challenging needle to thread, but one that we are well equipped to work together with, again, these federal and state partners, but also together with our county clerks and local law enforcement. And I think, Linda did a really wonderful job around that during the general election and did some very specific things with her local partners. And I know she'll want to share that all with you.
Thank you, Maggie. We did. We worked very closely in Bernalillo County with the wing of the Homeland Security, Richard Clark in New Mexico. He furnished us great security and PPE. We worked very closely with the Sheriff's Department. Even APD came in and gave us a helping hand. We have cameras and security at all of our polling locations. As Maggie said, there's nobody in uniform there, but we do keep a really close eye on it. Our poll workers are trained to look for any problems that may exist inside or outside. And we have a hotline, a war room we call it, where you can call in and report any kind of a problem at all. You can see immediately into those areas. So we've worked really, really hard on making these locations secure and safe for people. I think you'll be really happy. We were extremely pleased with our outcome in November, with how well all of the security came together for us, and all the PPE and all the problems that we had with the pandemic, which may still be here, which most likely will be here in May when I expect this to happen. So feel secure that your voting locations in our county are extremely good, and I'm sure they are in the other counties too.
It sounds like a complicated process, but we definitely thank you, ladies, for all the work that you do to ensure that our voters are kept safe. So we're going to go ahead and transition to the last question that I have, or that we have, and then we'll go ahead and turn it over to the audience. We're so thankful that you all joined us this evening. The question that is posed is, are the counties or state party or third-party groups like LWV creating any forums, interviews, information sharing? Do you think that the journal or TV stations will have debates? And this question again is for Maggie and Linda.
Beats me.
Can I just jump in on that too?
Yeah, go for it.
I think we need to distinguish between selecting our nominee, which is in lieu of a primary. Somebody asked if we're not having a primary. We're not. We're having the selection by the State Central Committee for our nominee. So I certainly intend for the party to have webinars and opportunities for the different candidates to respond in an environment like this. I think it's important that everybody gets to see the candidates several times. And then those would be a good time to ask about platform issues, particular issues, and all kinds of things that people are referring to in the chat. So I intend to have that in the run up to our SCC meeting. So, but then once we have selected our candidates, it's a big campaign. It's going to be big. We're going to be the only campaign in the country at that time. So we should have a lot of fun with it, and maybe we'll get a lot of surrogates, and who knows who'll come to make sure that we keep CD1 blue. So that's going to be our mission, and we're going to pick the very best person to represent us, and we're going to ask for help from all over the country to have a great election and to pick our next Democratic congressional member. So,
Thank you, Mark.
And I'd like to, I know Joan wants to say something, and then after Joan, I'd like to say a little something as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, because this pertains to, you know, what the counties and the county parties will do. And I think that we're in discussions of collaborating with multiple county chairs with the SCC selection process, because that's the first thing that we need to worry about and work on. So we're planning on having forums, hopefully in conjunction with the other county chairs that are in CD1. And as well as there was a question as to, you know, what's going to happen once we have our actual candidate. Here in Valencia County, we have a candidate affairs committee that will connect with the candidate and make sure that instead of stepping over each other's efforts, that we're adding to each other's efforts, and we'll come up with a campaign plan then.
And I just want to say that we have a lot of wonderful ward chairs in Bernalillo County. And I know they're already, many of them are already inviting candidates to their ward meetings to meet, interact with constituents. And I'd encourage you all to take a look at the Blue Review, make sure that you're keeping up with those. They'll be announced in our events section of the Blue Review and Little Blue. And yeah, make sure that you attend as many as possible. It's important that candidates hear from you and that you hear from them. You know, we need to establish these relationships early on. We're very fortunate that, you know, our Deb Holland, our wonderful representative, was like that. She understands the value of connecting with the community. And we need to make sure that these candidates understand that as well.
Thank you so much, Joan and Flora, for your insightful words. And yes, we're definitely going to miss Congresswoman, soon to be Secretary of the Interior, Deb Holland. So I hear that you all submitted some amazing, insightful questions. So we're going to go ahead and move on to that part of our session. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ellen, because you all submitted so many questions. She kept them, typed them up, and is going to go ahead and divvy out the questions to our amazing panelists. So Ellen, I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ashley. This is a question from Katie Ellis. How are we going to make sure people with disabilities can cast their votes?
Hi, so yeah, I'll kick it to you in a sec, but I did answer that question in the Q&A, but to answer it generally, and then again, as always, have Linda speak to some more specifics. Every election, every federal election, and every election in New Mexico are conducted in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Every polling location is ADA compliant. Every polling location has poll officials that have been trained to assist voters with disabilities. They have ballot marking devices that are fully ADA compliant to help voters with a variety of disabilities be able to personally mark their own ballot. A voter can also bring an individual if they so choose, or ask a poll worker to assist them if they choose to do that instead. Voters can also vote from the safety of their homes with any individual to provide them assistance that they choose, as well as blind and visually impaired voters may specifically request a special absentee ballot that will be emailed to them securely, that they can use their own assistance equipment at home to mark and mail that absentee ballot back. So we have a variety of ways. And I know Linda does a lot of really wonderful things in Bernalillo County specific to this issue as well.
Well, we do, thank you, Maggie. We do what Maggie says, but we also, every single polling location, as we start opening them up and setting them up, we have somebody from the American Disability Group come and look at it and make sure and give us a write-off that we've done everything we can possibly do to accommodate anybody that has a disability. So you can feel real comfortable if you have a disability, you can get into a polling location. If you have a problem, you're welcome to call our office and we will work with you to make sure that you get your vote securely done. But I feel very confident that people with disabilities can easily vote in Bernalillo County.
Okay, there are several questions related to how the SCC members will vote. Question from, it's probably a good question for Chelsea and Flora. How will the SCC members vote? And please give a good explanation of that. Majority, ranked choice, what is the voting platform?
Yeah, so with regards to, and I'm assuming that this is specifically with regards to this nominee. So the SCC will vote by majority. And so we do not do a plurality. The individual who wins this will need to win a 50+1. And in order for us to conduct that, unfortunately, our rules, and I say unfortunately because this is a lot to ask, and I think a lot of municipalities have been moving towards this, but unfortunately, our rules do not explicitly lay out a ranked choice process for this particular election. So we will do a traditional runoff in the event that no one individual gets the 50+1 on that first round. And so I've seen a lot of questions in the chat. We will, about, as soon as Maggie calls this as soon as the secretary calls this election, when will the, SCC vote? It's really kind of up in the air, all of these things. And this is just another piece of why us being able to call this election is one of, this runoff process is one of those reasons. So we have to give ourselves at the party enough time to be able to conduct what we potentially see as runoffs in order to meet that 56-day requirement that Maggie talked about, or that the secretary talked about earlier. I'm so sorry, Secretary. So we that gives us some room there, but
Call me Maggie.
We will need to do full runoff elections. And so the standard process is what folks are familiar with, which is the individuals whose total ballots or total votes make up 50+1 of the overall votes will then enter into the runoff. So if 3 individuals, through their votes make up, 52%, those 3 individuals will then enter into a runoff. In the event that, no one person from those 3 get 50+1, we would then trigger another runoff with the 2 individuals that got the top votes, as long as, they would, yeah. So I hope that answers that question, but we will be doing a runoff election, not ranked choice voting on this.
Okay, this has to do with candidates for CD1 who are raising money, and the question is from Julio Salazar. If the vote will only be among a small amount of people, why are the candidates raising money? And what are the rules regarding spending in this quote unquote pre-primary?
So the rules apply to any candidate running just like any other federal election. If you think about it, we have a similar process in general, primary and general elections, and maybe the primary election is the better analogy for this. Even if folks are, just sort of making their way around to county Democratic Party annual meetings to talk to folks that may go to the pre-primary convention, right? They're campaigning. In New Mexico, you can't get on a ballot as a major party candidate, even for the primary, if you don't receive at least 20% of the vote, right? Or get, a certain number of signatures. So at the end of the day, this is a nomination process. It falls under the auspices of the Federal Election Commission and federal campaign finance guidelines. So they must file with the FEC. They can raise and spend money. I'm not sure what the FEC guidelines are if a candidate fails to achieve the nomination, but so that might be another thing, do you raise money? And I'm just speculating because I should know this, but I am not. Let me put it this way, I'm much more literate in New Mexico state campaign finance law than I am in federal campaign finance law. But effectively this, anybody that is running to seek this nomination is running a campaign for a federal election and does have the right to raise and spend money, but has to do it under those federal guidelines.
And as a follow-up, Joan Weissman points out that she's already received solicitation for funds from potential candidates. Is it appropriate for candidates to hire professionals to further their candidacy? It seems to make more sense to donate once a candidate has been chosen by the committee. Please comment.
I think that's a valid opinion, but I think the candidates that are running, think about this, as has been mentioned more than once, this is a really short process. It doesn't begin officially until Congresswoman Holland resigns. From that point, there is as few as 77 days or as many as 101 days for the entire process to occur to elect a new representative. It's a really short period of time for somebody to get, to achieve the nomination. And then they also have to, then run on the actual election ballot, right? So they're going to face a Republican nominee and other nominees. So I think, candidates, unfortunately, I'm very pro public financing of campaigns. I'm very pro campaign finance reform, but under the conditions that we are currently laboring under in terms of campaign finance, smart professional candidates are going to be starting to raise funds now, not just to seek this particular nomination, but to have funds in the bank to be able to run a strong campaign in May.
Excuse me, this is Linda. A lot of this stuff has to be done early too. You need to make a budget. You need to plan early. So you need to know what kind of funding you're going to have. You're going to want to make mailings to all your state central people. If you can, you're going to be doing stuff on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever you can get to. Because like Maggie says, we are stuck in this little bitty bubble where we have to get all this done and come full circle. So they need help, actually. That's a big job. It's a big job to run for, and you have a very limited time. So if you have a candidate that you like, you need to get out and help them. You need to raise as much money for them as you can so that they have the process to contact people and do what they need to do. It's going to be a really quick, fast campaign. It's not drawn out. You don't have to raise $2 million like you would in 2 years, but you're going to need a few dollars right now. So 2 years, you'll be looking at it a little more.
Right. Okay, thank you. This next question is related more to the ward and precinct chairs. Catherine McGill wants to know, what are the demographic breakdowns of the ward and precinct chairs, and what is the outreach plan for new reps? I'm not sure who wants to take that one.
I'll take it because I'm not quite sure, Kathy, what you're saying as far as like with the current precinct chairs. well, we have 607 precincts in Bernalillo County. And so we're in our upcoming meetings, our ward meetings, we're going to be electing ward chairs, precinct chairs, and additional county central committee members. So the breakdown or demographics will be very different because we're electing new chairs and new CCC members. And so I would encourage everybody to reach out to your communities and bring people to these meetings. You'll be seeing more information on the Bernalillo County website about how to participate. And I think it's very important for people to understand that these elections are kind of the foundation for electing SCC members who will then be voting on these nominees. So, and it's powerful. You know, this is, you know, when we want to have influence on our Democratic Party, this is where it begins. So pay attention to your ward meetings. They will be taking place in Bernalillo County between February 13th and March 6th. They will all be virtual. And you have to register in advance. So make sure that you pay attention to the registration dates, the due dates. Everybody who is elected at those ward meetings will then vote to elect SCC members at the County Central Committee meeting. So those are very important positions as well, right? Because those are the ones who get to vote on this nominee, but also on things like our rules and our platform for the state party. And so these meetings are happening throughout the state in every county. And one of the reasons I wanted Joan on this call and Ashley is because these meetings don't just happen in Bernalillo County where we have 607 precincts and 64 wards. They happen in smaller counties as well. And it's a lot of work to do these meetings. And we're not paid staff to do them. However, we do have the help of some wonderful paid staff. And so I would like to encourage all of you, and Chelsea, if you could put the link to the State Parties Act Blue account in the chat, please. You know, we are very fortunate to have some wonderful people that work on our behalf at the Democratic Party of New Mexico. And they reach out to every single county, and they are helping us to organize and pull off these meetings, which is a really difficult task in the time of COVID. I sincerely appreciate the work that Maggie does and that Linda does. I absolutely love Linda Stover's staff. They're phenomenal. They're so responsive to our needs. And as well, the state party staff is responsive for our needs too. And they're helping us with these elections. So I'd encourage you all to donate to the state party and help them, because they do indeed help us as Democrats. So anyway, ward meetings, keep your eye on the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County's website, bernalillodems.org, and our newsletter. And please participate and bring your friends, family, and neighbors to participate too.
Yeah, and similarly, you know, Valencia County, we're getting ready to start our ward meeting processes where we're going to elect new precinct chairs. We have 62 precincts. The precincts here were recently split. So we have a lot of empty precinct chair positions. So people listening from Valencia County, we need some really great leadership to step up and so, you know, check our Facebook page and our website for these upcoming dates. And again, our CCC meeting, our County Central Committee meeting, we'll be electing a new chair and vice chair and our State Central Committee members. And so a lot of information about these processes will be coming out over the next few days. You know, I definitely, again, encourage you to help with the Democratic Party of Bernalillo County and their fundraising, and the DPNM and their fundraising. This evening, I wore our special commemorative piece. This is a necklace to commemorate Joe Biden's inauguration. And this is another piece. It says rebuild, recover, restore. These are available. There's a link on our Facebook page. Just beautiful pieces for a beautiful inauguration. So thank you.
And Chairwoman, if you don't mind, if I can just step in really quick here, I just want to say that every single one of our county parties is run by an amazing group of volunteers, and I really want to emphasize the word volunteers. You know, we are working really, really hard. We've been working for several months, or not several, it feels like several months, with the news of this possible vacancy. And it's taken a lot of building, but I really want to put a huge shout out that, you know, if you are, you know, interested in this process, if you want to be involved, you know, reaching out to your county and getting involved instead of saying, well, I don't know what's happening. And, you know, right now is a great opportunity to do that and become one of those volunteers and be part of that process. And if it wasn't for folks like our three chairwomans in Cibola, Bernalillo, and Valencia that we have on here tonight, you know, DP&M staff, we would really be lost. And so the volunteers really do are our glue. And I just want to put a huge shout out that, you know, we wouldn't be able to do it without them. And also just to say, please be kind. I'm really going to emphasize again, the folks that run our counties are volunteers, and I cannot say that enough, and they deserve your respect and they deserve kindness. And so I really hope that through this process, folks really see all the hard work that our counties do and also give them the due respect they deserve. So that's just my little piece I want to add in there.
Thank you for that, Chelsea. This is an interesting question from Jared Ames, who says, it is my understanding that Senator Daniel Ivey Soto is putting forward a bill in, I guess, the legislative session coming up that changes the approach to voting for candidates in this process. Could that impact this process if that bill passes?
So that is basically it's a rumor. There has been some talk by some legislators about doing something like that, particularly for future elections. I think, you know, I've spoken to at least one legislator who was interested in doing that. And, you know, my attitude about this, and, you know, I think Linda would agree, is, you know, this process is going to happen really fast. And I personally am a huge advocate of ranked choice voting. I'd like to see more of it throughout the state, but you don't want to completely change the way you run an election in this short of a time period, especially when you have to go through the legislative process. You're talking about maybe having to get an emergency clause in place. And then, you know, by that time, you know, maybe Representative Holland has already been confirmed and we're already, you know, halfway out the door in terms of planning for the election to be conducted a certain way. It's just really not good policy. It's really not good election administration policy to change the rules of the game as the game is already underway. And so while I think that's something that I think we should take a look at, you know, the last time we did this process, for those of you who were around back then, was, you know, 20 years ago. We had vacancies in the 3rd congressional district and in the 1st congressional district. It's been a long time since we've done this, but, you know, this law has more or less remained, you know, the process has more or less remained intact in state election code for this whole time. So going a whole 20-year period and then deciding, you know, 2 months before we're going to do this again, oh, now's the right time to change the law. I don't think that's a great way to approach things, but certainly for the future, it begs a lot of questions. Should we change this process for the future? And that's something I'm very willing to, you know, assist with, look into, and work with the legislature on.
You know, I want to say too, along with Maggie there, that this is such a short amount of time. You know, we have to train people to work in these polling locations. We've got 70 polling locations. This would be an administrative nightmare on how to do this at polling locations. Software we'd have to have in order to make sure all this ran. Explaining it to the public, that would be extremely difficult within a 77, 101 day period. So I'm with Maggie as far as looking for to the future, we might look at this. It might be a really easy, simpler way to do things. It would certainly save money. We wouldn't have to have all these polling locations. We wouldn't have to do a lot of this stuff. But for this one, we're not going to change anything in mainstream. We're going to have it exactly as you had it in November, folks. Exactly the same.
Thank you both. There are several questions in the Q&A asking for clarification about the actual vote by the SCC. So one of the questions is, would the runoff vote happen at the same virtual meeting the same day, or would there be a period of more campaigning before the runoff vote? If there is a runoff because a candidate does not hit the threshold of 50.1%, when or how soon would that runoff election be from the first SCC vote?
I can jump in here. Again, it probably feels like I'm dodging these questions, but again, this is all the timeline piece. So just to kind of review that for everyone, once the vacancy happens, the Secretary of State, Maggie, will announce the date of that general election, and that election needs to be held 77 to 91 days after that vacancy. The Democratic Party of New Mexico is required by state statute to submit our nominee 56 days from that date. So depending on when that date is set, we have 56 days to get that, or excuse me, we do not have 56 days. We have to get that in. So that can give us anywhere from 21 days if it's on the shorter end to a little bit more on the longer end. But that is what will then trigger and determine the process that we will follow. So most likely we will be looking at runoffs that will happen consecutively. So they will most likely happen the very next day. We are still ironing that out, and a lot of that is getting the actual specific dates so we can see. We also want to make sure that we provide enough notification to our SCC members. So that is another piece that we're considering. So until we actually know when that general election date is, it's hard for us to lay out real specific times. But the way we are currently approaching this is that there would be an election. That election would be, for example, open for about 8 hours. We would certify that election, and then if it needed to go to a runoff, we would conduct that election the following day. So to kind of answer your question, we would be looking at very quick consecutive runoff dates. There would be no, say, 15-day window where the candidates could regroup and have another debate. It will be a very quick turnaround for those runoff elections.
This whole thing's going to be quick.
Just a follow-up question to that, Chelsea. What is the deadline for somebody declaring their candidacy for CD1?
There is no deadline within our rules. So while, as I mentioned, we are requesting that individuals who do want to run for the seat, once that vacancy occurs, that they fill out our declaration of candidacy form that will be available via our website, and just contacting party staff, and we'll make that available. It will be accessible. In the event that somebody does not fill that out and they decide, you know what, I'm doing it, I'm going to do this, they still have the option of running as essentially a write-in candidate, and that kind of serves as a nomination from the floor. So there is no deadline, although we do encourage everyone to fill out the declaration of candidacy form, which will be open until 72 hours prior to us pulling together that vote. And mainly that's just for us to be able to get our ballots together. And anyone who does fill out the declaration of candidacy form will be listed on the ballot. Anyone who doesn't fill that form out and still wants to run can seek that write-in option.
Thank you. This is an interesting question from Alberto Garcia, who says, what is our plan to keep the momentum and grow our Democratic base, as well as counter the Republican messaging that we Democrats are un-American, socialist, elitist, etc. We need to take the radicalized right seriously and understand that they are willing to do anything to win.
You know, I'm glad you asked that you said that question, because I was, and it came early in the discussion. I think that's a great question. And I think that's something that we all need to work together on, because we know that there's so much misinformation, so many lies out there in the ether, that we need to counter them every chance we get. So we'll be working hard all the time with the messaging from the Democratic Party of New Mexico, and our candidates will be working on that as well throughout this process. So I'd love to talk further about this in another venue. I think it's important that we look at that. I think that there are lots of forces of evil out and about in our community, but we don't want to be part of that, and we want to be the truth tellers and the people that know that truth comes before reconciliation. So that's what we'll be working on, and I'd love to hear from others on approaching that as well.
I'm not sure, but I think that might be all of the questions. Obviously, if I've left something out, please somebody jump in, but I think that's everything that I've been able to track.
I will just say the only other question that I picked up on was an accessibility question with regards to the SCC. So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. Our absentee balloting rules, there's probably some debate, and I'll probably get a little bit of pushback here, but we rolled out the absentee balloting. Ironically, we passed this before COVID, and thank God we did. But this really does, in my opinion, just as we've been using this over 2020, we have seen greater accessibility from our SCC. We've seen greater participation from our SCC with regards to absentee balloting. And so I just wanted to speak on that. I think there's pros and cons to both in-person and the absentee balloting. But with regards to accessibility with absentee balloting, we provide for a couple of different things. Our main platform is online, although we do recognize that online, especially for some of our folks, is not an accessible option. And so we also allow for a phone-in method, so individuals can call and speak with our amazing staff that we have at the Democratic Party, and you can place your vote via the telephone. We also recognize that that may not be a good option for folks. So we also have an option of receiving a paper ballot and getting assistance with filling that out if that is something that you need. And so we really do accommodate for all different ways to make sure that this is as accessible as possible. And in the event, I just want to be clear, in the event that neither of those three options work, Democratic Party staff are committed and available to make sure that each and every SCC member who wants to place a vote is able to do so, and is able to do so in the way that works best for them. So I just really want to emphasize that and say that, you know, we are very open to making sure that our process is accessible to each and every one of our SCC members.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Also, Ellen, thank you very much for helping to field questions from our amazing audience. Now we're going to move into the session or into our agenda where we get closing remarks from our amazing panelists. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Honorable Maggie Toulouse Oliver. You want to give us some closing thoughts, Secretary?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank the state and county Democratic parties for organizing this event. My wonderful colleague, Linda Stover, who just does a phenomenal job at Bernalillo County, and everybody who took the time to be on the panel or watch the panel tonight. I know that we've just gone through a really intense election in this country, and you know, I think we all hope that while folks will continue to stay this level of engaged, that we won't have the kind of sort of, you know, nasty rhetoric and mis and disinformation about elections in the future. So having events like this where your party and election officials can, talk to you about the process, explain how it works, ask questions. Maybe you ask us questions we don't even know the answer to and maybe have to get back to you. But I think this is all really helpful to making sure everybody understands and feels comfortable with the process, especially one like this that we haven't done in such a long time. So I just want to thank all of you. And certainly I and my office, will continue to serve you all and answer any questions you may have moving forward. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Maggie. So next I'm going to turn it over to the Honorable Linda Stover.
Hi, everybody. As you know, I'm a longtime Democrat, like most of you are. But first of all, I want to take just a minute of time and thank Marg Elliston for the fantastic job she's done over her couple of terms as state chair. We've had fantastic state leadership through this last election when we've had so much trouble in the pandemic and all the questions and answers. She was always there to help us, to back us up, to give us anything we needed. Maggie's office has been a godsend for Bernalillo County. They've always come through, always brought us stuff. So when you're running a county, and Maggie can vouch for this, as large as Bernalillo County, it is a job to do an election. And we're going to have two of them this year, one in November, one last June, all probably under a pandemic. So we're very fortunate in the leadership that we've got in the Democratic Party. I'm very proud of being a Democrat. I could not be more proud of Deb Haaland as our Congresswoman and now as our Secretary of the Interior. And what a privilege it's going to be part of the election that gets her sent to the Interior. And I've heard all of the people so far, the candidates that I've heard, we've got fantastic, knowledgeable, excited people that are going to run for this office. So I encourage you to get out and work for any candidate that you think is running. This represents us. We're going to have a majority in Washington. We're going to be seen again. That's going to be such a wonderful thing. Also, if any of you consider being a poll worker, call me. I can use poll workers. We got 70 locations. But thank you for doing this. Thank you for having platforms like this. Always feel free to call me or anybody in my office or Maggie's office if you have any questions. We work for you. We're here to help you. This is your office, and we're just kind of guiding it along. So thank you very much for the evening. Thank you.
We are definitely energized by your words, Linda. Thank you so much. Next, we have up the Honorable Marg Elliston. Marg, will you give us your closing remarks?
Yeah, well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for all your kind words. The thing I love about the Democratic Party is we work together as a team, and we're working to make change for people. So I see that commitment here tonight, and that's a commitment that we're going to carry through this election. As complicated as all the little steps are, it's all going to work out. And but hang in there, because we're doing some really new things this year, and we're going to have precinct meetings that you have to actually prepare for because they're going to be online. I've been a county chair before, and I know how precinct meetings work. Pretty spontaneous, I would say. This year it's going to be different. So I'm going to enjoy watching how that evolves. You have the precinct works up to the ward. The ward meetings are going to be different this year because they're also online, and it's just not going to be as personable, but we're going to get stuff done. So Flora and Joan have the schedules, are going to be giving the schedules out for those meetings and plug into that, because it's going to be an interesting process. Once all of those meetings roll up into the County Central Committee meeting, and Bernalillo County has a huge challenge because they have a huge number of people that are on their County Central Committee. And it's at the County Central Committee where the State Central Committee members are selected. So there are lots of steps to get to the SCC, and it's the SCC that will make the decision on our nominee. And then we're all going to come together and make sure that person is elected in a really fun, energetic, and well-discussed election. So that's, phew, I'm already tired, but it's going to be great. And I know we have a lot of commitment and a lot of great people that are going to participate. So thank you all. And I also want to do a special other shout outs to Chelsea Evans, who makes it all work. She's amazing, amazing executive director. She's precise. She's practical, she's fun, and she is the mom of a toddler who is a great participant in all our decision making. And as soon as he learns to talk, it's going to be really startling when he starts giving us advice. But he's already assembled 1.5 years of Zoom meetings. So gosh, heaven only knows what's going to come out of Patterson. And thank you to Flora Lucero, who puts these wonderful meetings together and is wants everyone to participate and is a great model for involving one and all and making it accessible to all of us. So thank you all for this, for all that you do every day, and keep it up.
Thank you so much for your encouraging words, Mark. Next, I'm going to hand it over to the amazing and honorable Chelsea Evans. Chelsea, will you go ahead and give us your closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairwoman. And my son is currently pounding on my door and howling like a wolf, or he was a second ago. So apparently, the night has come, and but I will just say this. You know, we talked a lot about the CD1 vacancy and the potential for this to be a new SCC versus an old SCC. I just really want to emphasize that we are going through this process of selecting a new SCC, selecting a new CCC at the county levels, selecting our new chair at the state party level, selecting new chairs at the county level, and all of that is going to happen regardless of what happens with this CD1 vacancy. And I can't emphasize that enough. This process has been in place, and we have been working towards this for a long time. And so for the folks who are like, I can't believe only 175 people get to make this decision, I would strongly suggest that become one of those 175 people, or at the very least, turn out to your precinct and ward meetings and participate and vote on the people who will be voting for those 175 people. You have a voice in this process. You can participate, and it's more than just this vacancy. The SCC is our governing body of the Democratic Party, and if you want to see change, and if you want to see more work being done by the party, or you want to see a different program happening, or you just want to participate in what I think is really great work that we're already doing, you can do that. You can do that, and you can be a part of that voice. And so I just really, really want to emphasize that while this has been a really great conversation about specifically the CD1 vacancy, there's a lot more to it that our SCC and our CCC and our precinct chairs and we even have precinct vice chairs, right? We have a huge network of Democrats, and if this is your kind of first time hearing about it and you're interested, we welcome you, and we're excited to welcome you. And so I just really thank everyone on this panel. It's been great. I do want to say it's a confusing process, so if folks have questions, I'm happy to answer them offline. But my main driver here is if the vacancy gets filled by the current SCC, you still need to show up at your precinct and ward meetings because we do a hell of a lot more than just this. So come and check us out, and please get involved. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your words and your dedication, Chelsea. I will go ahead and turn it over to the Honorable Joan Day Baker for closing remarks.
Yes, thank you. And this has been a wonderful and informative evening. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and allowing me to be part of this. Thank you to our Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse-Oliver, and Bernalillo County Clerk, Linda Stover, and those from DPNM. And again, I do want to give a special thanks to Flora I've only been chair for about 8 months, and she has really helped to mentor me, and I definitely want to thank her for that. But you know, our parties, especially our county parties, are fueled by volunteers and are fueled by leadership, and we need many more active participants in Valencia County to start winning elections. And so I'm just making a blanket call out to Valencia County Democrats to please step up, step in, reach out to the DPVC at info@valenciademocrats.org. and join us in these exciting times.
Thank you so much for your words, Joan. And finally, we have the amazing, honorable, incredible. I don't have, and there aren't enough words, amazing words in the dictionary to describe Flora. Flora, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to close us out.
It made me cry. Thank you, Ashley. That means a tremendous amount to me. Thank you. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Thank you to all the attendees for being here. I'm not going to speak long. I'm going to Cheryl to have some closing remarks, but I do want to emphasize what Chelsea said. This is, the party is not, you know, the other people, it's us, you know, and when we work together and we come together, we elect amazing people like Maggie Toulouse Oliver and Linda Stover, who care about democracy and stand up for we the people. So we want to organize more Democrats, and we want to get more Democrats networked together and working together. You know, New Mexico is a shining light for the rest of the nation. And I really liked what Linda said, is that all eyes are going to be on us when this election happens, and that's really cool. We deserve it, because we've got some awesome people here, and they're starting to flood in from all over the country. Because they're finding that out. So thank you all for participating, and we will have lots of information on our website, bernalillodems.org, and please visit it, please participate, and looking forward to this. Cheryl, let me hand it over to you for closing remarks.
Thank you, Flora. This has been a wonderful session tonight. The questions asked were incredible. The supportive comments from the audience were wonderful. And the information from all of you brilliant women on the panel was so very helpful. We know you don't have all the answers tonight, but you had most of them, and you've got everyone on track. We had almost 200 participants on the call tonight. The numbers dropped a little bit, and I think you all have a better understanding of the dynamics than you did at the beginning. So all of that good information, we thank you. I want to just clarify, because I get the opportunity to be last. There was a question in the chat about ADA, and I believe the caller was saying not so much that her relative did not get to vote or that the site wasn't ADA compliant, but that the polling official there told them they couldn't vote because they were disabled. And I'd just like to add, if a polling official tells a voter anything that is incorrect or that they can't do, let Linda know. Mm-hmm. She will take care of that in quick order. Linda doesn't allow any of her polling officials to do anything wrong. I know that. And she will take action if she knows wrong information is being told out there. So we want everyone to vote. At the very worst, you get to vote a provisional ballot. Everybody votes. And that's what makes us so successful, I think, and made us successful in Georgia. And that's why we have the Senate. I'd like to thank Mark for her leadership, especially in terms of teamwork. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had so much better teamwork on the bigger team from state party on down, sharing of information, and the state party being so helpful to the county parties. And Mark, you get all the credit for that and your team. We're in much better shape than we were before. To the candidates, I'd like to say thank you for running. I ran once for school board, a very tiny little office, and I know how hard I worked on that. So I know what you're undertaking is enormous, and I want to thank you for getting out there. I would like to put in a special request, though, that, and this supports what Chelsea said, if your supporters, candidates, do run for an SCC position and get elected, I hope they will understand they are part of the party for the next 2 years, active participants, and they need to keep that role in the party. They're not just there to get their candidate elected and then disappear. Heaven knows we need everybody on board to retain everything that we worked hard to get this year. And then last but not least, I want to say that you need to watch your local news. And I don't mean Channel 4 or 7 or 13. I mean, watch your Blue Review in Bernalillo County. Check in with your Valencia County newsletter and your Sandoval County newsletter. Check with the caucus newsletters. We will all be putting up information with the timeline, the dates, what's going on. The Adelante Progressive Caucus, along with the Young Dems, said tonight they'll be doing some sort of a meet and greet with the candidates. We'll probably do a survey, a written survey in Adelante. I wouldn't be surprised if the Black Caucus or the Veterans Caucus do something. So this is how we'll learn about our candidates, by staying informed and stay in touch on your local news. So again, thank you so much. This was a wonderful session. We know not all the kinks are worked out yet, but we know good people are working on them, and we'll just stay informed. Thank you all. Have a good night.